Happy holidays, everyone. From me, Sewer Rat, to you. Today, I wanted to dive into the topic of Nightmare Before Christmas and the making of it. I'm going to be staying in the 90s, basically, and not going any further. I'm also not going to talk about how popular the Nightmare Before Christmas has gotten, because I think we can all see the rise of Nightmare Before Christmas over the last couple of years. This video is also not made for kids. This video is made for like-minded adults who love animation and want to talk about it, so that basically means I cuss and don't censor myself, so just a heads up. Also, all of my information that I found was either the art book, YouTube videos, and that's really like about it. All the information I got here were from YouTube videos that I will link down below in a master playlist with everything that I listened to and followed. I wanted to see personally from Tim Burton or Henry Selick or any of those people talking about it. I will link a archived page of it as well, as I found it on the internet, because archivists are literal godsends. So yeah, this is the making of Nightmare Before Christmas and whether or not it is a Christmas movie. I hope you enjoy and have safe holidays, everyone.
Did you know that Nightmare Before Christmas is a Christmas movie? I know it may sound stupid when I say that, as the word Christmas is in the title. The amount of people that put Nightmare Before Christmas on a Halloween movie list is crazy. When you look up a Halloween movie guide, almost always they're gonna throw the Nightmare Before Christmas on there, and I find that hilarious. Because one, the title is misspelled, and two, it's not a fucking Halloween movie. It's a Christmas movie. It's in the title, folks. This has been a debate and a hot topic between a lot of people to defend The Nightmare Before Christmas, saying that it's a Halloween movie or it's a Christmas movie. And there's this huge fight over whether or not you're right. Is it a Christmas movie or is it a Halloween movie? The answer is the fucking Christmas movie. It's in the title, and like I'm gonna explain why it's that. But like also everyone puts the name wrong. The film of the movie is Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas, not The Nightmare Before Christmas. Have you ever wondered why it's literally called Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, even though Tim Burton really wasn't even there for the process of creating The Nightmare Before Christmas? Let's talk about it. So what do I mean by Tim Burton wasn't even really there for the creative process of Nightmare Before Christmas? Obviously, that's stupid, and I can't really say that, as Tim Burton is the one who created the poem that Nightmare Before Christmas is based off. Tim Burton went to the one, the only, California Institute of Art. This is a very famous art institute, also known as Cal Arts, where a lot of very prominent workers and definitely animators have come from this college. Within the college in the 80s, there was a Disney program for Disney to be able to hire in animators early from the college and be able to bring them in. This is how you get Pixar basically being all from Cal Arts. The Disney program through Cal Arts is, from what I was reading online in the 80s, a very good program if you were an artist that wasn't a normal artist. Animators and people who were starting out and trying new things, Disney wanted to catch them and be able to produce those movies themselves and be able to make a profit off of the first of. Blah, 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 blah. Tim Burton was a weirdo, and he even says that himself. He was a weirdo. Many people that he came across within his time at Cal Arts were also weirdos, he says. He met a lot of other creative minds that were like him, which I'm sure made him feel more confident in being able to make his own art. However, when he was hired from Disney, Disney isn't really what you think of when you think Tim Burton. Tim Burton and Disney have never really like mixed together. It's always kind of been Disney taking on Tim Burton's projects to be able to produce it and take the money off the profit that his name brings. When Disney hired Tim Burton, they hired him in 1981, and he started to work on the animated film Fox and the Hound. If you've seen Fox and the Hound, that's one of the saddest Disney films. It is very a dark, sad, serious Disney film, and it's heartbreaking, but it's a really good film. None of Tim's arts or ideas were put into the film. However, he was still hired as an animator to be working on the film. He worked on another film called The Black Cauldron, again, right up Tim Burton's alley that Disney had done, but Disney didn't make a lot of money from that movie, and it was quite scary, honestly. Not really part of Disney's brand. Many people love The Fox and the Hound and The Black Cauldron and many other dark movies that Disney has made from years ago, but when they first produced, they were not making the big Disney bucks with those films like they were with their other films like Snow White or Cinderella. Since Tim Burton was hired through the Cal Arts program, there were other people who were also hired from the Cal Arts that then started working at Disney. One of those people being Henry Selick. He is one of the first people that Tim Burton met, where both of them really had very similar vibes and similar ideas. Later on, Tim would even go on to say that him and Henry Selick came from the same planet and the same neighborhood even. While working in this Disney creative program, Disney was giving their animators money or time to be able to go work on other projects and be able to come back and possibly turn it into fruition. One of those things was the poem that was The Nightmare Before Christmas. Tim Burton wrote this poem in 1982 after seeing a Halloween display slowly get taken over by Christmas. He thought it was so funny that these two drastically different colors and holidays were colliding in the same thing to make this weird situation. He said that there was a skeleton right next to a Santa Claus hat, and he just laughed, as those two things, the macabre of a dead body and the joy of Santa Claus, don't really seem to cross, but seem to be crossing at this time. Obviously, as we know, since the 80s had happened, Christmas has boomed. Most people start to celebrate Christmas sometimes in like August, even though it's in December, and Christmas has become a huge part of people's lives, slowly inching more and more within America's capitalistic system. Tim started to work on original concept art and characters that would go with his poem of The Nightmare Before Christmas. This poem was based off of the Night Before Christmas poem, which is all about Santa Claus coming down into people's homes and bringing them gifts as everyone waits with sugar plums dancing in their heads and excitement. Instead, Tim thought, what if like a demon creature skeleton man came into your home? Wouldn't that be crazy? And so that's what Tim did. Tim wrote this poem, and it's a very good poem. It's very interesting. It's definitely a twist on the Night Before Christmas poem, which is, where the name comes from, Nightmare Before Christmas, if you didn't catch that. Since at the time Disney had Tim in a contract, all of that original art stayed within the Disney walls once he left his internship in 1984. Tim worked on other shorts during this time, and these shorts kind of got a cult classic following of people knowing his name. And one of those people who ended up knowing his name was Paul Rubin, aka Pee Wee Herman. Saw some of Tim Burton's shorts, and he felt that Tim Burton had the correct styling and understanding of wackiness for the Pee Wee Herman Big Adventure movie. Tim Burton did the film, and it was a success in 1985. The budget was $8 million, and the box office made $40 million, so a pretty good return for Tim Burton's first directing film, which it was. This is Tim Burton's first big directing film where he is the big shot director. During this film, he found the first of Tim Burton's people. What you'll learn with the history of Tim Burton is that many of Tim Burton's projects that people call Tim Burton's really were created with a giant team behind him that he has slowly curated over the years and over the time of his other projects. This was one of his first. Danny Elfman. Danny Elfman is a singer and composer, and he composed the entirety soundtrack of Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure. This was the first time that Danny Elfman had done a score for a film this large. He had done previous work in music with his band Oingo Boingo, which makes a lot of great music for the Halloween time. Personally, I usually start to listen to Oingo Boingo September, October time to enter in the fall, but Tim Burton knew of Danny Elfman from his band Oingo Boingo. And he reached out to him, asked him if they could do a score, and really since this moment forward, Danny Elfman's going to be scoring about everything that Tim Burton touches, and a lot of things that people touch. Danny Elfman is a very popular composer. If you looked up his stuff on IMDb, he composes a lot of stuff, and man, does he compose good stuff. He makes really good soundtracks and really good music, and one of his first big shots and big breaks was, again, also with the Pee Wee Herman Big Adventure movie. After this, Tim Burton makes a wacky and weird film, Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice is not written by Tim Burton, but is directed by him, and so a lot of Tim Burton's weird influences are fused into Beetlejuice. It's another low-budget movie, but it makes big in the box office, and while working on Beetlejuice, Tim Burton meets two more of his friends that he starts to bring along with other of his projects. These people are Michael McDonald and Warren Scarron. Sorry if I pronounced those wrong, I'm dyslexic. Of course, Tim Burton works with Danny Elfman once again for this score, and this time the movie is a huge hit. It was known as this weird, macabre movie that people enjoyed. From these weird, wacky, practical movies, Tim Burton gets the attention of DC. Crazy, I know. Tim Burton is reached out to ask and to be directing the newest Batman series that is coming out. Tim Burton takes the chance and he directs The Batman in 1989. These Batman movies are obviously very well known as the Tim Burton Batman movies. Some of them made huge swings, and some of them were good swings, and other of them were really bad swings. Very bad swings. Suit with nipples. Tim Burton at this point has now directed 3 major films. We are talking about Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure, Beetlejuice, and now the Batman series. The Batman is being reinvented, and Tim Burton is the one leading the creative control. That's pretty crazy that he's a director of Batman after his, first 2 films? Many audiences at this point know Tim Burton's name, and they know his directing style. He works with writer Warren Scarron again, and of course, he works with Danny for the score, because how could you not have Danny Elfman do the score at this point? He's so good at it. After Batman concludes, Tim Burton decides to do his first independent film of his own idea, Edward Scissorhands. Edward Scissorhands is both written and directed by Tim Burton. It is also co-written with a woman named Caroline Thompson. Caroline Thompson is a very important figure, especially with Edward Scissorhands. She wrote a lot of the character that makes up Edward Scissorhands. The idea of a man having scissors came to Tim Burton when he was a young child, but the practicality of it kind of came in with a lot of question and concern from Caroline. She was the one who suggested that Edward be the one who makes topiaries and and ice sculptures, whereas Tim Burton was kind of thinking of it as more of a Frankenstein's monster, from at least what I could understand from interviews. I could be wrong. The internet's funny sometimes. Would you be shocked if I told you that Danny Elfman came back for the score of Edward Scissorhands? Of course not. And this is one of my favorite scores that Danny Elfman has done. Gothic beauty of Edward Scissorhands is written all over the music, and it is gorgeous. Some of those pieces are some of my favorite just to listen to as background music, and especially as piano pieces. A lot of Tim Burton's, which in extent to means Danny Elfman's music and scores, sound gorgeous on the piano. Oh, also Tom Duffield is back for art. It was used for the art of Batman as well. I can't remember if I said that. Since Tim Burton at this point is very well known and actually has a huge career, I mean, fucking again, DC reached out to him to do the Batmans, okay? He's got a huge backing at this point. He's a well-known director. So he comes back to Disney and he says, hey, remember that little tiny poem I wrote while I was under you guys in my internship and you guys still have that original art and stuff? Yeah, I want it. I want to do that. Can I do that? I'll produce it. I'll write it. I'll do everything, basically, is kind of what I imagine he said in the pitch meeting. I wasn't there, but that's what I imagine he would have said. He goes to Disney and he asks them to do his passion project of The Nightmare Before Christmas. Disney says yes, because at this time, Tim Burton is riding on a huge directorial high. He has just done the fucking Batman movies, okay? People really liked that first Batman. They hadn't seen the second one yet, okay? There was trust behind Tim Burton and what he was doing with his projects currently that Disney felt and was confident enough to back Tim's project. So Disney said, yes, we will do your project. We will start working on it. And so Tim Burton went to Danny Elfman and started to compose the score of The Nightmare Before Christmas, as he wanted Nightmare Before Christmas to be much more heavy on the music than his previous films had been. The Nightmare Before Christmas is written in a way that it is a musical. There's no way really around it. Everything that happens to Jack emotionally is done through a musical beat and score. Even Danny Elfman, the writer of Jack, really said it himself. Jack, the character, all of his character growth is through song. It is not through action or something else. He realizes what he's done once he starts to sing. This is a very musical movie. So Danny Elfman is living in Caroline Thompson's home at the time because his home was getting renovated. So Tim and Danny are working in Caroline's living room, basically, writing down the score and the music for Nightmare Before Christmas. They don't ask her to be involved. And that's an important part of this, is she was not asked to be involved, even though a lot of Nightmare Before Christmas was created in her home, thanks to Danny Elfman having to stay there as his home was being renovated, and she allowed him to be there. Tim and Danny are working on the score and the writing for Nightmare Before Christmas when Tim gets a call from DC. Batman did really good and they want to do a second Batman. There's so many characters and so much more lore to explore, and they want him to come back to direct. The problem is he would have to direct during the time of Nightmare Before Christmas. So what do you do? As a creative, do you stick with your passion project with a company that didn't let you do a passion project for, that doesn't really align with the way that your art looks and what you are creating? Or do you take a really fat check from DC? Tim decided to do both. What he decided to do was to take basically his entire A-team with him and go and do Batman. So a lot of people who worked on Batman 2 are other people of Tim. So, and I'm pretty sure also during that, I believe this means that Danny Elfman would have also done the score for Batman 2, which is crazy that he pumped out 2 scores because Nightmare Before Christmas's score is so good. Anyway, Tim takes his A-team and he goes and does Batman 2. He leaves, leaving basically Danny Elfman in charge of the music and Disney to figure out the story beats with his writer. We haven't really talked about this yet because I don't really want to talk too much about it because the person is no longer with us and I don't want to make giant swinging assumptions like I can at Tim Burton for a person who isn't alive anymore. So I just wanted to say that before I started talking about this next section. There was a third person working on Nightmare Before Christmas with Tim and Danny. Michael McDowell was brought in by Tim to fill in the writing portions of The Nightmare Before Christmas. He was brought in to write characters and to develop the story beats. He, however, did not turn in his pages in time to Disney. I don't know why, but he didn't. From what was there were bits and pieces of story. There wasn't really any structure or filling in of the script of missing pieces. That was done by Caroline Thomas. She was brought in by Disney, not Tim, to fill in the script, as Disney knew that she had worked previously with Tim Burton on Edward Scissorhands and had done fantastic. That movie is written very well, and so is the character. There's a lot of heart in Edward. And she had worked previously with other projects with Disney. So Disney brought her in and had her fill in. Basically, what she said is that when she came onto the set of Nightmare Before Christmas, it was like trying to build a house when somebody was already in it. There were so many hands in the pot because Tim and Danny and Michael had all started to write a script. Michael fell out of the script. Tim left the script. All that was left was Danny and the songs. There were bits of script that were left over that Caroline had to read, reprise, and see what she wanted to use into the film and what could be used into the film, and the original poem written by Tim. If there was ever a question of where they should go, a lot of the people who worked on the film resorted back to Tim's original artwork and Tim's Burton's original poem. However, a lot of art was made off of Tim Burton's original art, which then was used for characters and story beats within the film. Like Sally, for instance. Sally isn't a character that Tim Burton made. She is a character that was sketched up and drawn. The idea of her, I believe, was written by Michael McDowell. The idea of a Frankenstein stitched together woman who throws herself out of a tower and stitches herself back up together. I believe that's the original artwork that Caroline Thompson walked by and saw of Sally being on the side of a tower, stitching herself back together. And she took that character and she ran with it. Immediately, she says what came into her head was Sally trying to help Jack and Sandy Claus when they are in Oogie Boogie's lair, of Sally using her hands or legs to be able to help them out. The situation seemed fun and she seemed like a good character that they were able to mold. So we have a writer coming in, Caroline Thomas, to fix in the script that needs to be fixed. We have artists coming in to make new art based off of Tim Burton's style. And finally, we need somebody to direct. Tim Burton isn't going to be directing this film as he's busy directing Batman 2, Faster and More Furious. He needs somebody. Who does he call? Henry Selick. Remember that guy who came from the same planet as Tim Burton? Well, guess what? He needs him. And Henry Selick hasn't been doing too bad for himself. He's made a name off of his MTV bumpers that were full of stop motion. Stop motion at the time was an animation art form that had kind of fallen out, since the fact stop motion is extremely tedious, expensive, and hard to do. You can completely ruin a 10-day shoot by a light being off just a little bit in the last 5 frames. It is immensely important that stop motion is done very meticulously, and so a lot of companies don't want to spend a bunch of money on a film that will take about 4 years to produce, compared to an animated film that they could probably pump out in about 2 to 3 years. But Tim Burton was determined that his Christmas special would look like other Christmas specials of the past. Think Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or the other ones. You know, those old stop motion ones. That's the feeling that Tim Burton wanted for this film, so he brought on Henry Selick. Henry Selick became the director, and man, did Henry Selick direct. So the creative process and the production side of Nightmare Before Christmas starts. Tim Burton leaves to direct Batman 2. He takes his team with him, and Henry Selick is basically kind of in charge of the B team for Nightmare Before Christmas. And drafts are being sent to Tim, and he's checking yes or no if he wants things. But in the end, the creative and directive process goes to Henry Selick. Henry Selick was on the floor daily with this movie. I was reading in the Trusty Dandy art book, because you can always go back to the art book to learn about what the director was feeling most of the time. He would do these things called the dailies. He would go in and look at yesterday's output, basically meaning that he would scan every single photo that was taken the previous day to see how it shot and how it looked for the film. He did this constantly. I am sure there are so many shots of Nightmare Before Christmas that Henry Selick has seen that the public has never seen, because 1, there was a problem with it, or 2, it got cut on the floor. This film was watched meticulously by Henry Selick. The result of Selick's work is masterful. The Nightmare Before Christmas has very, very little mistakes in it, and this is done before CGI had a huge hand in it. A lot of the shots in Nightmare Before Christmas that you see that look 2D or like they were put in post by an animation team are done by cell animation, meaning that they're still done by hand. This movie is handmade everywhere, and there's only a couple of mistakes left in the film, as Henry Selick was determined to leave those mistakes in. He wanted people to see that this movie was made by people and that there were mistakes. This is before CGI came in to help stop motion animation a lot. If you've seen a small stop motion film called Coraline, you would see that Coraline's face is completely smooth. However, if you look at behind the scenes photos, you'll see that she has a seam across her eyes and her nose for her faceplate changes. This is so the animators can make her mouth and eyes change and be able to say different words. The plate of it is removed digitally after shot. Nightmare Before Christmas doesn't have any characters that have faceplates like that. Tim Burton in total was on set for 10 days. This is very famously known in the Nightmare Before Christmas lore, is that Tim Burton was on set for a total of 10 days of the about 4 years of production and work of Nightmare Before Christmas, and for those 10 days, most of them were promo shot days. Disney made sure to get photos of Tim Burton working on this film to show that it was a Tim Burton film. This was writing so much on the fact that it was a Tim Burton film. To say this film is a Tim Burton's film is kind of like a slap in the face to everybody who contributed and made this film. This film, if anything, is a Touchstone Productions film, if we want to call it that. Or if we want to say that there's one main hand that made it, maybe let's say Caroline Thompson's Nightmare Before Christmas, or Danny Elfman's Nightmare Before Christmas, or Henry Selick's Nightmare Before Christmas, as those 3 seem to be the main driving force behind the story of the Nightmare Before Christmas when on the lines for Nightmare Before Christmas. Again, Tim Burton was only there for 10 days of production. Like, that's not really on the lines of working this production block. Of course, there is no one storyteller when it comes to storytelling. There are many hands and many creative processes that come into the storytelling process. I'm sure there's many films that I love that I contribute to 1 or 2 people, when really it's more like a team of 12 to 15 people that I should be thinking of. Many normal people who have normal time to do normal things aren't thinking about every single person that is in the production of a movie. However, creatives are always thinking about every single person, even the PA who's bringing coffees to be able to let the director work work another day of filming. Tim Burton is one of the 4 titled writers. Yes, he is a producer, but he is not director, and he definitely isn't technically main writer. The point of the story, of course, is Tim Burton's work. It is Tim Burton's art. However, he's not the one making the creative choice once The Nightmare Before Christmas hits the scene. The Nightmare Before Christmas that we've all seen is more Henry Selick's than Tim Burton's. At that point, there's so much influence that Henry Selick has over it. Is it Tim Burton's anymore? Yes, he is the one who wrote it, but the poem does not play out exactly the same as the film does. Again, Sally's in it. Sally is a huge part of The Nightmare Before Christmas, like a huge part. Most of the story that isn't sung or about Christmas Town is Sally. Like when I was writing down the points of how Nightmare Before Christmas is indefinitely a Christmas movie and not a Halloween film, there were so many points where I realized that I didn't have to pay attention because Sally was on screen, because Sally doesn't have anything to do with the holidays. She doesn't do anything in the holidays. She has everything to do with the town and Jack. Everything to do with the emotional beats of the story. But again, she's not in Tim Burton's original poem. So is this a Tim Burton film? Because it doesn't feel like a Tim Burton film. A Tim Burton film seems like something that he directs and has control over, like Edward Scissorhands, like Beetlejuice. Those are the films that are Tim Burton's. The Batman films are Tim Burton's films. You can say that because he's the one who directed it. However, he's not the one who wrote it. He did not write the story of Batman, but yet that's a Tim Burton Batman. That's Tim Burton's Batman, right? Like we all can agree that that's Tim Burton's Batman. And just because this is a Tim Burton looking thing doesn't mean that it's a Tim Burton item. This happens a lot, like with James the Giant Peach, another stop motion film directed by Henry Selick. Many people believe that James the Giant Peach is directed by Tim Burton, or Tim Burton had influence in it. He didn't. Disney made James the Giant Peach after they had success with Nightmare Before Christmas and stop motion, and the director, Henry Selick. So you may be thinking out to this point, why is people so confused that this is a Tim Burton film when in fact it's a Henry Selick film? And that's because of the name. Let's get into the name and why everybody gets this name title completely wrong. And that's because the official name of this film is Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. Nightmare Before Christmas is not called Nightmare Before Christmas. You have been shortening the title for years and you didn't even know. The film is Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. You can look it up. You can see. Once you start to look at merchandising, you realize he's always been there, just lurking in the background. Trust me. Let's look at the bottom of this plate, for instance, that has my teacup. Does it say Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas? Yes, it does. Because guess what? That's the name of this film. This book was produced in the 90s, and it again says Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas because that's the official name of this film. Why is the film called that? Disney at the time, it's 1993. If you didn't know, 1993, why does that sound so familiar? That is the year that Disney's Aladdin released, one of their classic Renaissance movies. When Disney put The Nightmare Before Christmas into production, they had more money in their animation studio because this is when Disney is rolling in the dough with their very famous musicals. Disney is in the midst of their renaissance when Tim Burton comes and asks if he can do Nightmare Before Christmas. The fact that Nightmare Before Christmas is technically within the Disney Renaissance, it doesn't feel like it's a Disney film. It feels like Disney acquired the Nightmare Before Christmas somehow and just has like started to just like pump merchandise out as fast as possible. But this has always been a Disney product. As I said, Tim Burton was working at Disney interning when he wrote The Nightmare Before Christmas, and when he made the art of The Nightmare Before Christmas, it was on Disney's dime. It was on Disney's dollar that he's making this. Disney has always owned Nightmare Before Christmas, but Disney did not want to produce The Nightmare Before Christmas because look at it. That doesn't look like a Disney property. It's scary. It's black. It's Halloween-y. Nobody is going to think that this is a Disney product. So what does Disney do? They release it under Touchstone Pictures. If you didn't know, because why would you know? Touchstone Pictures is a branch off of the Disney company. Touchstone Pictures is Disney's. They just release things that aren't Disney through it. Disney starts to get a little bit fearful over The Nightmare Before Christmas when they start to watch the cut of it, realizing this has nothing to do with their company. Like this has very little the crossover with what their company is currently putting out. Like again, the movie Aladdin has just come out in this year. Like Disney is not producing Nightmare Before Christmas stuff. So Disney gets fearful and they put it underneath Touchstone Pictures. Disney is so scared, however, that still going now under a smaller company that not many people know, Disney starts to get a little fearful when they realize that the Disney brand is not going to be behind The Nightmare Before Christmas when it releases. At least if it was released as a Disney animated film, then it could have a little bit more in the box office and make a little bit more money. So what do? They can only do one thing, they feel, and that is to completely promote it as Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, as again, technically it's Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. So that's exactly what Disney does. Disney comes to Tim Burton 3 weeks before Nightmare Before Christmas is due to release to the public and tells them they're releasing it underneath the title of Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. Tim then goes and tells Henry. During this conversation, supposedly Henry and Tim seems totally fine over it, and it seemed more like a company decision than a Tim decision. And we'll leave it at that. The movie cost $25 million to make. It made in the box office on opening weekend $200,000, which isn't a lot. By the end of the time that it ran into the box office, it had $15 million that it made. By Disney standards, this is bad. By my standards, getting $200,000 in one weekend is really great, and then within 3 months making $50 million is even better. But by Disney standards, it's not great. They've just released the movie Aladdin this year, and Aladdin had the same opening weekend and about same budget cost. However, Aladdin brought home $346 million from its time being in the box office. So not too great for Nightmare. However, commercially, Nightmare does good. Henry Selick is a well-known director now after directing his first film, Nightmare Before Christmas, and Disney asks him to do James and the Giant Peach. So off of your Disney standards, if you're a Walt Disney Company person in the 90s, looking at the metrics, Nightmare Before Christmas, yes, did well, but not as commercially well as Aladdin. So Disney doesn't really like promote or make a lot of merchandise for A Nightmare Before Christmas. It's a very small thing. And Touchstone Pictures starts to produce the one thing that they know how to make, and that's at-home media. Touchstone Pictures release laserdiscs, VHS, and even DVDs of The Nightmare Before Christmas within the next 10 years of it coming out. And shockingly, it starts to become a cult classic, as if this beautiful, well-written, gorgeous movie wouldn't be. It is one of Touchstone Pictures' #1 home sellers for home media. So now that you know that The Nightmare Before Christmas is actually called Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas and all of the production history and build up to it, let's finally talk about how The Nightmare Before Christmas is a fucking Christmas movie and get it off of all of your Halloween lists. It's ridiculous. Why is it on all of your Halloween lists? Now I'm gonna tally up how many times this movie can be counted as a Halloween movie as it does Halloween-y things versus a Christmas movie as it does Christmassy things. Let's talk about how much of this film is Christmas. So, The Nightmare Before Christmas. First off, the film, point number 1, goes towards it being more Christmas than Halloween. The film is literally called The Nightmare Before Christmas, so like there's one right there. Next, the movie starts on Halloween night with the song This Is Halloween, proclaiming very proudly, "This is Halloween. Everybody scream for the Pumpkin King now. It's Halloween." The song concludes and Halloween is over. They announce that Halloween is over. They're so happy. They hope Jack had a really great time. And then Jack is like, "I'm really depressed actually. I hate my job. I'm gonna go wallow in this graveyard." And that's exactly what Jack does. Jack wallows in this graveyard, a beautiful graveyard by the way. Jack goes to this graveyard and talks about how sad he is and about how much he doesn't want to do Halloween anymore and how he wishes there was something new that could be in his life. I forgot to mention, this is going to be talking about the points that are Christmas and Halloween and not so much a movie overlay. So if you've never seen the movie, I suggest you probably should watch the movie. So I'm going to be talking about only the points that make it for Christmas. So in this list, you're not going to see Sally like a lot really. And I'm going to be skipping over like big chunks of the story as I'm just talking about what makes this movie a Christmas movie, even though I feel like I made my point already. Jack goes and he leaves his town with his good old dog Zero, and they enter into a forest that Jack has never been into before. Finds a very strange circle of trees. Each tree has a door looking to symbolize some sort of thing, but Jack has never seen these doors before and doesn't know anything outside of Halloween. So he's a bit confused why there is a tree and a circular shaped door. Whereas us normal folks know that those are holiday doors. This is the Tree of Holidays, where each tree is a portal into a different holiday. If you didn't know, Jack is the king of Halloween and Halloween Town. He is the one who is in charge of making sure that all the boys and girls get scared every single year by Jack the Pumpkin King. Jack the Pumpkin King has no other ideas or even concept of other holidays. He doesn't even know of that. So when he comes across these trees with a bunch of different holidays looking, he doesn't really go for one, except for the one that draws him in the most. That door being Christmas. Christmas draws him in and he opens it and falls into Christmas Town. Christmas Town is full of bright colors, snow, and cheerful people getting ready for the next holiday in line, Christmas. As Thanksgiving probably is coming around the corner, but who really celebrates Thanksgiving? Jack in Christmas Town is amazed by this. Something completely out of his realm that he's never even thought of. Again, Jack's the king of Halloween Town. He's only known ghosts and ghouls, pumpkins, and skeletons for decades now. He's never even thought of Christmas trees or sugar plums. The thoughts that start to swirl in Jack's mind are very simple. I want to do this, and I'm going to do this. He takes what he learns from Christmas Town in his song, What's This? When he sings all about how excited he is about this new prospective town. He says that he is going to make his own Christmas and does just about that. He takes back all of his knowledge from Christmas Town, leaves, meeting back up with Zero. He calls in a town meeting to tell everybody about this new amazing thing that he learned called Christmas from Christmas Town. He tries to explain Christmas Town as well as he could, but this town only knows of Halloween and ghouls and spooky things. They can't even understand the colors and concept that Jack is throwing around. Their entire town is a palette of black and orange and gray, so the bright colors of red and green aren't really in their mind as an exciting color, probably more for like blood and guts is what they're thinking of when they hear red and green. The town kind of understands Christmas, but not really. These folks have never seen anything besides themselves. So Christmas Town isn't really translating very well. Jack is determined to make Christmas happen. Jack starts to do experiments to learn the best Christmas method to be able to bring Christmas joy to everybody in his town and around the world, as Jack knows as a holiday deity to go into the real world during that holiday. So Jack's just kind of decided that he's just gonna do Christmas this year. Like, Santa Claus doesn't even gotta worry, he's gonna do Christmas. Jack starts to do Christmas experiments and then starts to give his townspeople the instructions to move on for Christmas. The townspeople start to build presents and decorations in the beautiful song Making Christmas, as another point towards it being a Christmas film. Jack and Sally meet up as Jack asks Sally to make him his very own Santa Claus outfit. Sally says this is a terrible idea and that Jack, you should not be doing this. This is like not good at all. Like, you don't know Christmas, you don't know what you're doing, you should leave it alone. But Jack is so excited and so high off of the endorphins of the idea of a new holiday because he has been so seasonally depressed with Halloween that he is jumping and biting at the bit to be able to do Christmas. Then he doesn't even take any of Sally's concerns and goes, yeah, no girl, I'm fine. Make me a suit. Make me a suit. Your dad's gonna make me some reindeer. Okay, I'm getting Christmas going, it's fine. After this, Jack finally gets everything for Christmas, and it is only one day before Christmas as the calendar clocks down in Halloween Town to show that Christmas is only one day away. As in Christmas Town, everybody also is getting ready for the real holiday of Christmas to bring Christmas joy. Three mischievous little stooges named Shock, Lock, and Barrel show up to Santa Claus's house to kidnap him so that Jack can take over as Santa Claus this year. The three bring back Santa Claus right as Jack is about to set off for Christmas night. Jack takes one last thing from Santa as he needs a hat. As Jack starts to load into his dead reindeer drawn sleigh, Sally pours in some fog to kind of stop Jack from being able to go into Christmas. But this kind of puts into prophecy of Zero being able to be Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer for Jack. The fog doesn't stop Jack at all, and Jack takes off towards the real world to start delivering presents to every boy and girl. Jack does just that and gives out presents to a bunch of different people, and it scares them ever-loving shitless. These people start to call in the police and even the military. The police take them seriously for once. Jack is shot down by the military and dropped into a graveyard where he poetically sings about how he hates Christmas and how mad he is and all these things. And he realizes that maybe Christmas just isn't for him. Maybe he truly does need to scare boys and girls, and that can only happen on his holiday, Halloween. Jack goes back home to Halloween Town to let Santa Claus free and let him be able to give all of the boys and girls Christmas gifts for their holiday. However, Santa Claus has been taken by Lock, Shock, and Barrel back to their big old bad leader, Oogie Boogie. Santa Claus is right now tied down to a roulette table, about to be completely murdered by Oogie Boogie, who thinks he's the big bad, but really that's Jack Skellington. Jack Skellington is canonically the scariest character of Halloween Town. Everybody has a huge fear for him. He is considered the scary big bad. Oogie Boogie is just the boogeyman. Mostly what makes him scary is his shadow, not him. So when Jack goes to face off Oogie Boogie, there's not really much that Jack can do. Oogie Boogie is fighting back pretty hard against Jack, but Jack's his fighter. He will always get him. Oogie, not so smart, gets his foot caught into the machine of his thing and completely unties himself and lets himself go of bugs. Santa Claus is freed thanks to Jack and Sally. Jack and Sally kind of have a moment, but not really. Or Lock, Shock, and Barrel show up to help release Santa Claus now. They're on Jack's side. Okay, whatever. Jack returns Santa Claus back to his town and tells him that he's sorry and that he didn't mean to, and that next year he's gonna make Halloween really, really good. He gives back Santa Claus's hat. Santa Claus goes back into the real world and gets rid of all of Jack's presents and delivers the real gifts to the boys and girls. We see that the real world is put back to peace, and everybody in Halloween Town celebrates Christmas all together in their own little way. And the movie ends. Well, not before Jack and Sally have a really beautiful moment on top of Halloween Hill and kiss. How much of that movie would you say, if I described it to you, was a Halloween movie? I do believe the first 4 minutes of this film is Halloween. Here's what I can say. Get the fuck off your Halloween list. Did you not listen to the last 15 minutes of what I was just saying? It's all Christmas. It's a Christmas movie. The thing that not many people understand about The Nightmare Before Christmas is The Nightmare Before Christmas is meant to be watched during Christmas time when you wish it was still Halloween. It is meant to be watched when you are wishing the ghouls and the ghosts were still all around your home, but instead you have to be cheerful and happy and excited about the end of the year coming. Nightmare Before Christmas is not meant to be watched in October. I don't want it to be Christmas, okay? The point of Nightmare Nightmare Before Christmas is for Halloween to bleed into the Christmas holiday, not for the fucking Christmas holiday to bleed into Halloween. There's enough Christmas all around, okay? Have you been to a Hobby Lobby ever? Just go. If you miss Christmas, go stand in there. They have Christmas 24/7, okay? You do not need to watch The Nightmare Before Christmas in the October season, okay? Any of you bitches, make a Halloween list and send it to me, and on it is The Nightmare Before Christmas to watch on Halloween day. I'm blocking you. I'm reporting you to the police, because why am I watching on Halloween night a movie about Christmas? I don't even want to think about how much money I have to spend at Christmas time in October, okay? Do you know how stressed I am the week after Halloween, thinking about all of the Christmas plans I need to do? I don't need those ideas to be put in my brain on October 31st night. Do you know what I need injected into my brain on October 31st? I need guts. I need gore. I need horror. I need slashers. I need something spooky. I don't need a skeleton man wishing it was Christmas. Obviously, it's not a Halloween film. Obviously, Nightmare Before Christmas is based off of the Christmas poem, and I'm just saying, I just think maybe you should watch it during Christmas time when you wish it was Halloween. The point of it is for Halloween to bleed into Christmas for once, instead of Christmas bleeding into Halloween. Those are my points about why it was a Christmas film, and some points I also want to make is about the creative choices that were made in The Nightmare Before Christmas, because some of the creative choices that were made in The Nightmare Before Christmas I didn't even realize, and they make me just love and appreciate the movie just a little bit more. And all of this information that I got was from the director's commentary of The Nightmare Before Christmas on the DVD. So this is all from Henry Selick and another person. I cannot remember his name at the current moment, but he was another person who worked on the movie. So this is all information that I learned from that, which when I learned it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I would like to share that information. So here I am gifting it to you. Let's go. All animation is done by cell. All cell animation that you see is done by hand. And what they do is they hand animate it once they get in those screens. And in each shot individually, that cell is put into the frame. Zero is done kind of in a similar way. He is a lot of like low exposure. He was one of the hardest things to animate and to work with. Many shots of The Nightmare Before Christmas hold for a little bit longer than you would think. And the point of that is so that it looks like a painting. There's a lot of shots like Jack on the Hill that's meant to look like a painting. Jack walking into the forest, it's also supposed to look like a painting. Jack's homes, a lot of the outsides. This movie is meant to look like it is just a painting, and it is very flat, but obviously this is a real 3D world. And doing that means that all of the surfaces of the town of Nightmare Before Christmas have these very intentional hand-painted attributes to them so that it looks like a hand-painted portrait when it's photographed. Henry Selick's favorite shot in the entire film is the shot of Jack and Zero on top of Halloween Hill. Halloween Hill is the official name for that gorgeous little spiral that we all absolutely love in its art. And that spiral is the original hill that Tim Burton drew, and it's called Halloween Hill. The shot for Jack and Zero was one of the hardest to do because of lighting, because the moon is so huge and behind that you had to get the brightness of the moon, but also not wash out Zero and still be able to see Zero. The lighting for The Nightmare Before Christmas is actual real stage lighting. And you may be thinking like, yeah, of course they have stage lighting on these giant stages that they're animating on. Of course. No. I mean like the teeny little lights in the sets are like miniature filming lights. Like I'll show a picture here. They have all of these little tiny lights, and it makes it feel so much more realistic, and they're really shooting in a real place, especially in Dr. Finkelstein and Sally's like kitchen area with the spiral up. Those little shots of lights I appreciate so much more, knowing that they were teeny little lights they had to purposely place there to be able to like make it all look right, and it's just so much fun. The shot. Okay, so this is one of the main reasons why I wanted to talk about the animation at the very tail end, is because the shot. And when I say The Nightmare Before Christmas shot, you may be thinking like, I don't even know what you're talking about, but if you're an animator, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the doorknob shot. There is obviously the very famous Christmas tree, and there is that shot of Jack Skellington reaching for the doorknob of the tree with his reflection in it, and that was one of the hardest shots to do. Let me read the expert from the art book. This is what Henry Selick in the art book had to say about the shot of the doorknob. Early in the film, when Jack Skellington is wandering in the forest, he discovers a group of holiday trees. He is drawn to one brightly colored Christmas door. As he reaches for the shiny doorknob, we see the forest behind him, reflected within the surface. The doorknob and the reflection are on a screen for only a second. Few in the audience suspect how much labor was actually involved in the shot. The crew had to work inside an 8x8 by 8 foot box for 2 weeks, creating a forced perspective image of what Jack saw in the doorknob. We literally built a set to the view of the doorknob, then custom built the set backwards from that view. Some of the sets have been as large as 40 40 by 20 feet. Others have been only a square foot. A lot of the sets have been built for a single shot. If you broke down the labor of one person, it would be the equivalent of working 6 months for a single 8-second shot. Just for that doorknob. So basically, like what I just read, they completely built the backdrop of what the doorknob sees, that Jack sees in those trees, behind it so that the reflection is like correct. Like it's just, there's so much labor and love put into that shot, and the shots in the film for a very short amount of time. But that is like the shot of the film that people know is like the door shot, is like that shot, and the shot of Jack with the lights across his eyes are like two of the iconic shots of the film besides the hill. Okay, there's three. There's the shots of the hill, there's a shot of the door, and there's the shots of Jack with the Christmas lights in his eyes. Those are like the three I would feel best known shots of Nightmare Before Christmas, singly taken out of the film. No holiday knows of each other. That's like a huge point of the lore that I don't think they really like fully put across, but like kind of put across, is like they don't know of each other. Santa Claus has never ever seen anything scary. Jack has never ever seen anything nice. Maybe in St. Patrick's world they've never been able to be like sober. I don't really know. There's not really explained, but all I know is that like Jack is completely stunned when he sees the holiday trees, as they are something that he has never even crossed in his mind. Christmas Town is meant to be lit as a carnival where there's not a lot of light off of the moon like it is in Halloween Town. Halloween Town is a lot more moody and streetlights in the moonlight. However, in Christmas Town is meant to look as carnival-y as possible. There are a lot of bright lights and a lot of the light sources in the town and people's homes. There are only 3 live shots in this entire film that are not actually stop motion. That is the soup going through Sally's spoon, the fog starting to come out of the well when Sally deterred Jack from becoming Santa Claus, and when Oogie Boogie's bugs start to drop into the lava. Those are the only 3 live shots that are done in the film that aren't stop motion. The fire in Jack's room and most of the fire in this film is technically real fire. And let me explain. What they did is they took the fire and then took the film from those fires, cut them up, and cut out the fire specifically and put it behind Jack. So all of the flames in behind Jack are real flames, but photographed real flames. That's so cool. I wouldn't even have thought of that. But yeah, all the fire is not hand done fire. It's real shots of fire that has then been placed. The song, Sally's song, was almost completely cut from the movie. It was very close to being cut, but Henry Selick made sure to save it. The screeners who watched the film said that Sally's song completely stops the film, and that you're so excited about what Jack is going to do in the real world that all of a sudden you're in this sad ballad from Sally. Henry Selick fought for that scene. 1, it is beautifully animated. 2, it's beautifully sung, and it really pushes the heart of the story forward, which is Sally. Sally is a huge part of this film that definitely helps with a lot of the story beats. Cutting her song completely really cuts her character development. So I'm really happy they kept it in, because it's true. It is a very beautifully choreographed scene where when you're remembering that these characters are being moved shot for shot, the way that she walks around and moves around everything is very smooth for her mapping and for her walking. It is done extremely well. So those are all my thoughts about Nightmare Before Christmas. Thanks for coming along. Hope you enjoyed this little like holiday special. You've all been saying it wrong. It's Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, and have fun whenever you see merchandise now. You go, oh, does it say Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas? And you'll see right at the top. But now you know it's actually Henry Selick's. And I'm happy to be able to talk about the previous work of Henry Selick's before talking about Coraline, because I do want to dive into Coraline. It's a little bit messy now to dive into the history and the meanings behind Coraline when we know the creative behind Coraline and what he's done. This has been this video. Thanks for coming down into the sewers with me and diving deeper into one of my favorite Christmas films, probably. I would like to say happy holidays to everybody. Merry Christmas to anybody who celebrates. Happy Hanukkah for those who also celebrate Hanukkah. I hope you enjoy Nightmare Before Christmas as Halloween starts to bleed in a little bit more into Christmas this year. Stay safe, and remember, shoot, I forgot. Okay, bye.